Nobody's above the law. 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 Nobody's above the law.
Yeah! He has worked for the American Civil Liberties Union of Oregon for 33 years until he retired 3 years ago.
We believe in one of the most fundamental principles of our form of government, which is the rule of law and the Constitution, and that no one is above the law. The Attorney General who was fired yesterday, Jeff Sessions, was no friend to the Constitution or civil liberties. He eviscerated civil rights enforcement by the Justice Department. He undermined the Voting Rights Act. He defended and implemented President Trump's Muslim ban. He implemented the zero tolerance policy towards immigrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, which triggered the unconscionable policy of separating immigrant children from their parents that continues to this day. Just today, the Trump administration implemented new rules that will automatically deny asylum to people crossing the border without visas, regardless of the merits of their asylum claims, in clear violation of international protections the U.S. has long recognized. Jeff Sessions should have been fired for these actions. But no, he was fired for the original sin of recusing himself from oversight of the Mueller investigation of Russia's involvement in the 2016 election. Now the president has appointed Matt Whitaker as acting Attorney General. I believe in violation of the Constitution's Appointments Clause, which has always been understood to require that any acting Attorney General must be someone in the Justice Department who was previously confirmed to serve in the Justice Department currently by the Senate. Matt Whitaker, well, yeah, he was confirmed by the Senate to be U.S. Attorney in Iowa in 2004 under the Bush administration. Sorry, that doesn't count. Even Richard Nixon, during the Watergate Saturday massacre, understood that it had to be someone in the chain of command in the Justice Department that could fire Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox. When then Attorney General Elliot Richardson and the Deputy Attorney General William Ruckelshaus refused to carry out that order of the President, it was then Solicitor General Robert Bork, remember him? Who fired Archibald Cox. But that precedent wasn't good enough for Donald Trump. So who is Matt Whitaker? You've probably heard that Whitaker agrees with Trump that Mueller's investigation is a witch hunt. And during a brief stint as a guest commentator for CNN last year, he also outlined a blueprint for stymieing Mueller's investigation by cutting off his funding and refusing Mueller's requests for subpoenas and indictments. But there's lots more. Whitaker is also the former campaign chairman for a Trump supporter in Iowa who happens to be a witness in the Russia investigation.
Surprise, surprise!
That's right. Former conservative talk show host Sam Clovis ran for state treasurer in Iowa in 2014 and lost. And in 2016, Clovis became the national co-chair of the Trump for President campaign. After the election, Trump nominated Clovis to be chief scientist, he's not a scientist, in the Department of Agriculture. But Clovis had to withdraw his nomination when it turned out he was called before the grand jury to testify about George Papadopoulos' efforts to link up with Russia in support of Trump's campaign. Minor conflict of interest? Nah. Should Whitaker recuse himself from oversight?
Should be
Well, in an interview that Whitaker gave in 2014 when he was in the Republican race for U.S. Senate in Iowa, he gave an interview about his views on issues that might be relevant if he became senator. By the way, he came in fourth with 7.5% of the Republican vote. He was asked about the judicial branch and what were the worst decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court in his view. And he started off by saying, well, you know, the judicial branch is the inferior branch of the federal government. 3 co-equal branches of the government? Nah, not for Matt Whitaker. Which Supreme Court decision did he point to as being the worst? He went back to 1803 and Marbury versus Madison. Marbury versus Madison is the decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that held that actions by Congress, laws passed by Congress, and actions of the president and other members of the executive branch must comply with the Constitution. And if they don't comply with the Constitution, the courts have the authority to overrule those actions. That's what Matt Whitaker wants to turn the country into as acting Attorney General, a country where the courts cannot overrule actions of the executive branch or the president. Is that the America we want? You could not find, I mean, even Robert Bork, when he was nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court, didn't question the rationale of Marbury versus Madison. Even he wasn't that radical. There is no way Matt Whitaker could be confirmed by the United States Senate to be Attorney General. President Trump's plan is to undermine the Mueller investigation before the new Congress takes office in January. Will we allow that to happen? Who is going to stop Matt Whitaker and Donald Trump? That's what I thought. And not just us here in Eugene, but us who are gathered right now across this country.
Good evening, resistors! It is a cold night, but we are warm in our love of the Constitution, and we will not back down. We are standing together for the rule of law. We must and we will defend Mueller and this investigation. My name is Melissa, and I am just an ordinary person, just like you. I am from Iowa, so I have a lot to apologize for. Clovis, Whitaker, and Steve King. But having said that, there are a lot of good people in Iowa. There are a lot of good people around this country, and hundreds of thousands of them are marching and rallying right now in unity to say to Donald Trump, you are not above the law. In the United States, we don't have a king, we do not have an emperor, we have a president who answers to the people. And I know the last 2 years have been very, very hard for so many of us. And so many things have happened. We keep hearing about the new normal. Well, I reject that phrase. These things are not normal. Ripping children from their parents and putting them in cages is not normal. A president handpicking his attorney general who will oversee his investigation is not normal. We must never let these things become normal. We must become uncomfortable. And I am uncomfortable standing here in front of you speaking. We must all find the courage to become uncomfortable, and that means having uncomfortable conversations with our neighbors, our coworkers, our friends, our family members. We must talk to these people about what's at stake. The future of our country, our values, who we are as a people, is what's at stake. I encourage every one of you, you've already shown that you're committed by coming here tonight. Please get uncomfortable, be brave, and keep resisting. Don't let Trump become the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, something that happened to me just very recently. 2 times, people from Germany came up to me, and they said, during school, we learned to recognize the signs of fascism. And we have every sign here right now. We need to look at the signs of fascism. You can Google it. They had a poster in Washington, D.C.'s Holocaust Museum for the signs of fascism that was pulled out of the museum.
After the picture went viral on the internet.
It went viral on the internet. So look that up. You can find a link to every single sign. And so we need to be vigilant, and we need to make sure that it doesn't happen to us. It happened to Germany, just slipped right in there. And so people know to recognize it. We also need to recognize it. We have another speaker here.
I had planned on coming to the courthouse this week, at least several times, but not for this. I had come here to support our children's trust. 21 kids and teenagers and young adults who are challenging the Trump administration on climate change. And we all know why Trump is so afraid of this, but how could we stand and let him get away with going back to the Ninth Circuit and then to the Supreme Court again and again and again? This man is just afraid of children and the truth. And I appreciate us all standing up here and acknowledging that. Thank you.
Indivisible. Nation. Indivisible. Nation. Indivisible. Nation. Woo! My name is Jerry. I was fortunate enough, I grew up at a time when our country wasn't threatened. I did mail my selective service card on my 18th birthday, and I promised myself, I said, I hope I never have to serve, I hope I never get drafted, but if our country is ever threatened, if there's ever an existential threat to our country, I will be there to defend her. I didn't know that existential threat was going to come from inside. But clearly it has. And I joined the resistance right after the election. I said, wow, this guy's crazy. We're going to have to stand up to that. So I joined the resistance early. And here I am today. And I want to thank all of you for being here with me. And I want to point out that it's not the firing of the Attorney General that we are protesting. Okay? Let's be clear about that. The President has the right to have a cabinet that he thinks will, do the job for him. What we are protesting is the illegal appointment of an acting Attorney General who has never been confirmed by the Senate, which that right there is illegal. The acting Attorney General can be anyone who has been approved by the Senate. Matt Whitaker has not been approved by the Senate. So plain and simple, right there, his appointment is illegal.
That's right. Yes.
And that's before you get to all the stuff that he said about the Mueller investigation. That's before you get to the part where he talked about how you could, deprive it of funding and just starve it to death. You don't have to fire him. And now this guy's overseeing the investigation? Nah, we can't have that. We cannot have that. And so I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. When we realized that was a possibility, Indivisible Eugene started planning for this event, a year and a half ago, Lynn, something like that. We've known it was a possibility. We kind of always figured we might have a couple hundred people who would come out here and join us.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
In 1967, I attended my first street demonstration against the Vietnam War. At that time, most of the people who joined me in that demonstration were my age. It's 51 years since that time, and I'm sorry to say that most of the people that I'm seeing are still my age. So I'm here tonight to make a plea to you all, involving your participation in civic education, because there are thousands of students 2 blocks from here that should be here. Our nation will not progress if our youth do not know what the Constitution is about. There is no civic education left in our schools. There is little social studies education left in our schools. There is virtually no history education left in our schools. There are many reasons our schools cannot provide it, but there are many of you who can step forward and volunteer and go to your schools and interface with students as mentors, as class assistants, and help educate young people to understand that the Republic will not survive if we are not well educated and are not really citizens and are merely people on social media and looked at as consumers. It's my simple message, and I hope you will all make some effort in your daily life to do this.
I'm Alan, and I'm mad as hell, and I have been for 2 years. I'm mad as hell that Betsy DeVos is trying to damage and destroy our educational system. I'm mad as hell that people like Kurt Bueller are talking about giving the teachers more pay and at the same time talking about reducing school budgets. I'm mad as hell about people lying to us all the time, being led by a president who does not know the truth from a lie. This man his life has been an open book. For the last 60 years, if anybody cared, they could go back and find out about his childhood, about his adolescence, about his hard working, pulled himself up by the bootstraps, $1 million from his dad, and then the $400 million that he got through special kinds of write-offs. This man is a scammer. He's a fraud. He's not entitled to be president of the United States. He's not. This man was elected by accident. He was as surprised as you and I were. He intended only to get elected so he could expand the Trump brand and have Trump hotels all over the world.
And Hillary paid him.
Then suddenly, he is president of the United States, and it's gone to what is left of his head. He thinks he can run the world now. And he thinks he can do that best by destroying the United States. And I'm mad as hell. What do you think? Are you mad as hell? I'm madder than you are. Are you mad as hell? Then this is just a start. As the man said, this is an existential threat. We put up with DeVos, we put up with Zinke, we put up with Carson, we put up with all those other useless toadies of his, and all of the people that he's fired, that have walked away. I understand it, as of last night, the State Department has fewer state employees than all of the military bands are in Washington, D.C. That sounds like a strange quote, I know, but the point is we have no State Department anymore because we're going to rely on armies to expand our influence and not on diplomacy and talking to people. So we're now at a point where we're going to dismantle the country one department at a time. State Department's gone. Now it's going to be the Justice Department, and we won't have any rights. If you want to read a book, it's How to Take Over a Country, essentially, and it's called How Democracies Die. How Democracies Die. Read it, and you will see all the things that Trump is beginning to do, and this is just the start. I am certain, and I am mad as hell.